Hello all my bookish friends. It is that time of the year, and I don't know how it's that time of the year, but it's the end of the year. So it is now time to do the bookish tag. So I've taken these questions, I have them here in front of me, from Larry Reed's, because she did her book tag. So I just screenshot the questions and I'm going to do them and answer them from my perspective. So the first question for the tag is the most disappointing book that I read this year. Most disappointing book that I read this year, and I actually had to think really hard about this. There's a lot of books that I rated quite low, but a lot of them were arcs, so they haven't even come out yet, so I don't really want to count them. So the only book that I found that released this year that I was really, really disappointed with was a Frida McFadden one. It was The Housemaid is Watching. Is that what it's called? I'm double checking. The Housemaid is Watching. It's the third book in the series. I think we could have stopped at the second one, to be honest. It just wasn't great. Didn't enjoy it, didn't captivate me. Don't really remember much about it. So that was the most disappointing book for me this year, because I've enjoyed all of Frida McFadden's other books. There's no other book that I can think about of hers that I didn't enjoy. It was just this one. So yeah, that was my most disappointing read of the year. What was an underdog book is the next question. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call this an underdog book. I think, like as Larry said in her video, her interpretation of an underdog book is just a book that you don't hear a lot about. I don't think it's an underdog as in it's lesser than other books, but it's Call It What You Want by Alyssa Derogatis. I'm so sorry if I butchered your surname, but this book is absolutely beautiful. It made me cry. I rated it 5 stars. If you are a woman going through a situationship, or you've been in a situationship, you can relate to this. If you've dealt with men, you can relate to this. It's an absolutely beautiful book, just showing the progression of a relationship that really has no progression, but you're still staying around. And why are you staying around? It's beautiful. I absolutely loved it. I cannot recommend it enough. And I think it's a book that every girl needs to read in their 20s, because it makes you kind of reflect back on when you were a teenager and maybe you had that kind of first love and you just kind of stuck around even though you were never more than that. And that's just what that book feels like to me. I related a lot to like 17, 18-year-old me. Now looking back at 26, like thinking, what the were you doing? Why were you sticking around? So, beautiful book, absolutely recommend it. What was an overhyped book you read? Iron Flame. I didn't even need to think about that. Iron Flame. I have it somewhere. I have a pile of all my books here that were like my favourites of the year. But yeah, Iron Flame. Love Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing made me cry. I instantly bought Iron Flame. Didn't read it until 2 weeks ago. And just Iron Flame didn't deserve the hype, but Fourth Wing did. Now, don't get me wrong. The minute Onyx Storm comes out, I'm reading it. But it's just for the quality of Fourth Wing to then see the difference in Iron Flame. You can definitely see the difference in her writing. I ate it up, like, don't get me wrong, because I love Xaden and I love Violet. I ate that up, but it just was, yeah, underdog book for me. Not underdog, sorry, overhyped book for me. The next one is a book that surprised you. This book really surprised me. I rated it 4 stars. I never heard of it. It was just brilliant. I don't want to say too much about it, but it's called By Any Other Name. It's about 2 writers, and that's all I'll give you. But it surprised me because I got it in a blind date, I think, and I thought normally the blind date with books aren't great because they're just kind of like thrown in. Do you know, it's books that aren't really like, you don't really get the big hype books in blind dates. So I didn't expect much when I saw it, and I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I just thought if it was maybe about 50 pages longer and like the ending was a bit more fleshed out, it would have been a 5 star for me, 100%. Your favourite book couple of the year. Right. I had my answer to this up until last night. So I want to say that my favourite couple was Johnny and Shannon, because I read the whole Boys of Tommen series this year. I could say it was Magnolia and PJ because I read all the Magnolia Park series this year. Like, there's a lot. I read a lot of big books this year, but I genuinely think now, looking back on it, that my favourite couple is Hallie and Henry. I finished this last night. I couldn't put it down. It's just beautiful. It made me cry. I've never seen such amazing representation without giving a label to someone in a book. Like, there's just, like, Henry has no label, like, and Hannah Grace has been very vocal about, like, not putting a label on Henry. But they're an amazing couple. The way that they treat each other, they're not just in love, they're best friends as well. And it's just such a beautiful story. So the next one is your favourite main characters of the year. Now, this is a hard one for me. But Johnny Kavanagh, 100%. I have Johnny Kavanagh, Henry Turner from Daydream, and Jared Gibson. They're my male ones. Jared Gibson, that book, I know a lot of people were disappointed with it. I personally wasn't. I understood where people were coming from, where it felt more like Lizzie's book than it did Jared's, but I feel like as you get through it, their stories are so interconnected. It's hard not to separate. It's hard to separate them because it's so connected. But he's just an amazing character. I'm actually going to get upset thinking about him. He's amazing. So they're my favourite male main characters. My favourite female main characters is Magnolia Parks, obviously, Hallie Jacobs, 100%, and Shannon Lynch. They're my three favourite female characters of books I read this year. Love them so much. And Feyre. We'll give Feyre and Rhysand as well, because I did read Akamoth, Aquawar, and A Court of Frost and Starlight. I don't know what the acronym for that is, but there we go. So yeah. New favourite author that you discovered this year. Chloe Walsh, because I didn't read her books up until this year. I never got the hype. I thought, I'm from Cork, I don't want to read a book set in Cork about Cork boys. Ew. And then I was so sorely mistaken. I should have picked it up sooner. That was my new favourite author that I discovered this year. An author that didn't work out for you this year. There's no author that I really could say I read more than one book that didn't work out for me. So I can't really answer that, because I don't think there was a book that I can turn around and say that author didn't work out for me, because a lot of the books I read, multiple books in their series, and I loved. I read multiple books of the same author, and the authors I did read, if I didn't like their book, it was maybe the first book of theirs that I read. So I don't want to say that they didn't work out for me, because they may in their next release, or a release from their backlist that I just haven't got to yet. So yeah. What is the happiest book you read this year? The happiest book I read this year was, oh my god, Daydream, probably. Daydream. I want to say The Boys of Tommen, but you know The Boys of Tommen ain't happy. So we're not going to go Boys of Tommen, we're going to say Daydream. And the saddest book that I read this year, which is the next question, was Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. I cried within the first 3 pages, I think. The story is just so beautiful. The Boys of Tommen is up there as well with the saddest books that I read this year, but 100%, if I had to pick a standalone, it would be Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. Was the most frustrating book you read this year. It was actually an ARC I received. It was called Murder on Line 1. I can't tell you a thing about it. It was horrible. I hated reading it. Sorry to the author, but I really didn't enjoy it. The best book adaptation of the year. I want to say It Ends With Us, but not really, because everything that's going on with there right now. But I haven't read The Idea of You, but I've heard that it's quite similar to the book. But the ending changes, I think someone said. I think I read somewhere. I think that's the only book adaptation I can think of that I actually watched, because Daisy Jones and the Six was 2023 and It Ends With Us was this year. But like, looking back on it, I enjoyed it, but none of it was how I pictured. So yeah, I'm gonna go with The Idea of You. Your favourite covers of the year. Favourite covers would be actually, the other book is over there, but I have this one in front of me. Wild Love by Elsie Silver. These covers are beautiful. I have Wild Eyes over there because it's actually on my TBR for the month. But yeah, the Rose Hill series, the covers are beautiful, and we just got the third one released recently as well, the cover for the third book, and that's going to be green. So they're all, I just love the colours that Elsie Silver's artistic choices when it comes to her covers are amazing. And as well, the original Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, not the shoe covers, the ones that has Magnolia on the front of it. I absolutely love that cover as well. A book you haven't stopped thinking about. Binding and Keeping 13. I think about Johnny and Shannon every single day. Every single day. I could be in Cork City, walking around, and I see something and I think of them. I think of Johnny and Shannon more than I should. And that says something. But an unpopular book you loved. There's none I can think of, to be quite honest. It's awful to say, but all the books I kind of read are popular. So there isn't really one that I can think of that like no one really likes, because I don't like saying like an unpopular book you loved, because reading is so subjective and like, sorry, not subjective, objective. Like, I could love something and you could hate it. So I don't really feel like answering that question is fair, because just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you wouldn't. So there's no unpopular book. There's a book you thought you'd love but didn't. I loved Iron Flame, but it just didn't get that. It just didn't get there for me fully. It was Iron Flame, because that was disappointing for me. So it was a book that like I thought I'd be absolutely obsessed. I'd feel the same as I did when I was reading Fourth Wing, and I didn't feel the same. So that's all I'll say. And it's not that I didn't love it, but it's that my expectations were probably too high for what I got. Book with the most unique concept you've read this year. This was actually an arc, and I can't stop thinking about it. It was 5 stars. It comes out in January, and I'm so excited to get a physical copy. It's called The Favourites by Lane Fargo. It's about ice skaters. It gave me very much like I, Tonya vibes. And it just the intricacity of the ice skating world and figure skating. It's an amazing book. When it comes out in January, you all need to read it. I think you'll be as obsessed with it as I was, because I couldn't put it down when I wasn't reading it. I was thinking about it, and it's just an amazing book, really, overall, like really good. I cannot wait. The cover is beautiful as well. If you go and look up the cover, I cannot wait for it to come out in January. Book you read this year that you would reread. I've so many, because I finished the Chestnut Spring series this year, I think, or at the end of last year. That's a series I'd reread. Magnolia Parks, I read all of that this year. I'd reread that. I read Gold Rush Ranch by Elsie Silver. I'd reread that again. I'd reread Akamoff and Aka War, Daydream, Boys of Tommen. There's so many. That's all the books I'd reread. That's all I'm going to say. The next one is Goodreads 2024 reading goal reflection and a reading goal for 2025. So the reading goal I set for myself was 150, and I'm currently at 166, so I've surpassed that. I think Sarah Crowley did the book tag video as well. Sorry, I need to take a drink because I've been talking for a long time. Sarah Crowley did this video as well, and she said she set herself 100, and it was a nice goal because it was easily achievable, and if you got into a slump you didn't feel like you were very, very behind. So I think for 2025 I might set mine at 100 as well, because I know I can get to the 150. But if things get busy, or if I don't have time to read, or if I get into a slump, which I'm lucky I haven't in a while, but I'm just going to set it at 100 because I felt like I put a lot of pressure on myself this year to reach the goal, and I valued quantity over quality. A lot of the time I feel like I read a lot of just average 3 stars, 2 stars. So I want to value quality next year over quantity of the amount of books I read. If I surpass 100, amazing, but if I don't, at least I know I'll hit that 100 goal. So yeah, I think I'm going to hit it. I'm going to set it at 100. I'm happy I reached the goal this year, but I just feel like I did put quantity over quality. A book you wish you got to this year. So many. I wish I got to Funny Story actually by Emily Henry, because I haven't had a chance to read that yet. Normally what I do with Emily Henry books is I wait until it's close for her next book to come out, and then I'll read her last one, because I'm caught up with all her books. So basically when Funny Story was being released, I only just read Happy Place then, so that I knew I had another release to keep me going. And Great Big Beautiful Life isn't out till next, I think it's April, so I want to save it for close to then. So I will be reading it in 2025, but I wish I got to it this year. I wish I didn't put that kind of thing on myself that I have to keep it, and I just read it. And then what will you prioritise in your 2025 reading year? I think I've answered that already. I think a lot of it will just be valuing quality over quantity, valuing taking the time to just pick books I really want to read and not just reading for the sake of getting to a reading goal. So yeah, that's my book tag of 2024. Let me know how you got on in 2024, and can't wait to see you all in 2025.